Welcome to this week's episode of Biz Success in 15, where top experts share hot tips and strategies that you can implement in as little as 15 minutes to build your dream business. And now here's your host, the Visibility Wiz, Cindy J.
Hi, I'm Cindy J, the Visibility Wiz, and welcome to this episode of Biz Success in 15, where top experts share hot tips and strategies that you can implement in 15 minutes or less. Today, our guest is Joie Gharrity. She is the founder of 113 Branding and is a brand director, content strategist, author, and international speaker. She worked on the Hollywood entertainment industry for 15 plus years for top companies such as Walt Disney and Sony Pictures. Joie recently launched her book, The Red Carpet Guide to Visibility and Influence, specifically for entrepreneurs. She shares branding and marketing strategies, techniques, tools, and tips that can be implemented easily and quickly so that entrepreneurs can elevate their brand and gain greater visibility and influence. Welcome, Joie. It's a pleasure to have you.
Hi, Cindy. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. To start with, could you please describe either a personal or business challenge that you had to overcome in order to achieve your level of success?
Yeah, so to be extremely visible has never been an easy ride or road for me. So that was really challenging for me, especially last year. And I know the importance of visibility and influence. I mean, that's what my entire brand's about. But I always share this with my clients too. They're always a little surprised that it just doesn't come like super, super easy to me, and I'm not jumping out of bed and going, "Oh, I can't wait till I'm get visible today." I'm like, no. I mean, I worked in an industry that is very, very the entertainment business is really a small bubble, and it's super private, and so I really had to relearn and recalibrate myself, and I still do in regards to how visible I'm getting, right? Because yeah, of course we would highlight and spotlight the big projects we were working on, like the blockbuster movies and the television shows we worked on. But we never discussed outside of the bubble itself about how we put them together and what we were working on, things like that. It's a very secretive community. Mm-hmm. So visibility, I would absolutely say it was my first major challenge.
Yes, and you've definitely overcame that, so that's great.
Yes.
What do you think helped you overcome it?
Cindy, I've really jumped back into, I meditate daily. And so meditation and yoga has become a big part of my daily practices. So really self-confidence. I mean, if you think about it, the not wanting to be visible out in the marketplace really typically comes down not to people saying they don't know necessarily how, even though that can be a major question for some people, but it's typically about self-confidence, right? People are going to see you. They're going to, and with that comes a fear of criticism, and with that comes the fear of, negative feedback, and it goes on and on and on, especially for women, right? And so, but those two practices were game changers for me.
Right. Very, very good. Thank you. Meditation and yoga. I love both of those practices as well. Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned about some people not knowing how to get visible. Yeah. And I think there's so much noise out there. Everybody knows, per se, a lot of things to get visible. Whenever I've drilled down with my clients, it comes down to a fear of making a mistake. They don't want to waste their time on the wrong strategy. So it still boils down to those fears in that confidence. It's like, oh my God, what if I make a mistake?
So we might as well just put it out there that everyone's going to make mistakes.
Oh, yeah, true.
I mean, I always tell my clients, I'm like, so let's just get that out of the way.
Yes.
Like there's going to be mistake after mistake after mistake. You just have to keep tweaking and recalibrating a little bit. But at the end of the day, I mean, my the flag I'm flying out there is that your visibility and influence is directly linked to your earning power. Right. So when people come to me and like, I want to make more money, I'm like, great, then you need to up your visibility influence game. It's really that simple. People only buy from people that they know what they're selling, that they emotionally are connecting with, that they're trusting, especially with the political climate. And So I'm telling people, I'm like, getting visible will be your best friend.
Mm-hmm. I know so many people, whenever they get visible, they are, they're afraid of rejection, or they're like, well, what if somebody says something to me? So what do you tell them whenever they say one of those two things? I want to be liked by everybody, and what if I do the wrong thing?
Well, I've really grappled with that this year. And what I've discovered about myself is I had to come to terms with what kind of leader I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so before May of this year, I was absolutely wanting to be the likable leader, where everyone liked me and I didn't cause a lot of waves. And I was like very, like overly supportive almost. And so I decided, when I had to sit down with myself in May, is that I wanted to be an intentional leader. And with an intentional leader, that I knew that there was going to be some backlash,
Mm-hmm.
that when I was sharing some unique point of views that are important to me, that not everyone was going to like them. So I just ask everyone out there to sit down with themselves and ask themselves, what kind of leader do they want to be? And if they want to be a likable leader, great. That's the right fit for them. And that just means that you're going to be it's going to be a constant balancing of act of keeping people happy. Right.
Right.
And my legacy, I don't want people to say, oh, I'm so glad Joey didn't rock the boat, or
Mm-hmm.
no, I want my legacy to say Joey had a point of view.
Right.
So I really had to mentally and even physically get prepared for some of the fallout. And I'll be honest, it was a rocky May and on 2017, because I set that intention. But I'm really proud of that intention, and I'm happy with that.
Right. And that's all about growth. You have to get uncomfortable to grow.
Yes.
I know that you state that your brand song is the heartbeat to your business and to your brand. Mm-hmm. And without it, that the current customers aren't going to be able to recognize the business that they've came to depend on. So you can explain what your song is and why it's so important in business?
Sure. So a couple years ago, I saw a friend of mine at a Christmas holiday party who was also a client at the time, and I didn't even know she sang a note. And she told me she had a surprise for me. And there was, I would say, 80 to 100 people there. And she got in front of the room and she sang the most beautiful holiday song. And we all knew it. We all grew up with it. And so we all started singing along with her. And it elevated the entire room, and it elevated her. Mm-hmm. That night when I was heading home, I had this very aha moment. I was like, oh, the way I can explain to people is that branding is really just singing your song. Mm-hmm. But first you got to discover it. And so I work with my clients, and I help to download their song. I can do it in about one session now, about 90 minutes. I've gotten really fast. Mm-hmm. And download their song, because I ask them a series of questions. And what's really amazing about the process is that your song isn't your title, or it's not what you do for a living or your field. It's mm-hmm. actually what the outcome is and what your life purpose is. So my song is Visibility Influence. Mm-hmm. So I was so grateful that I was able to download that song. And at the same time, I was so scared, because it's something I've been running from my whole life. And by singing my song every day, it encourages me and supports me to stand in my life purpose every day. And it's changed my life, literally. Mm-hmm. So when you download your song, and mine's the Visibility Influence song, you're actually stepping into your life purpose and your birthright and why you're here. And the rest of the marketplace starts singing it with you and along for you. And it starts elevating you in the brand. But the beauty part is you don't have to work so hard. Right? Because they know your song. Natural. They can sing it.
Right.
They can sing it. So it's the same thing for the audience out there. Think in your head what's one of your favorite songs and your favorite artist. And let's just say it's Lady Gaga, right? Mm-hmm. And let's just say Lady Gaga, your favorite song, Lady Gaga, and 5 years later, Lady Gaga decided, you know what? I like that melody, but I'm going to change every single word of that song. What would happen in the marketplace? They would have a breakdown.
Right.
Because they can't sing in the shower anymore. They don't know the words, right?
And
it's the same philosophy.
It's very interesting that you use, that particular thing, because so many songs are sung by different artists.
Mm-hmm.
And I know my daughter, she has songs and she's like, oh, this is such a beautiful song. And I listen to it and I'm like, no way, because I'm used to the person that I grew up with that sang it,
Mm-hmm.
not, her brand of music. So to me, it's just completely different. So even if you're singing the same thing, if it's not the right tune, you're not going to get it.
Exactly. But here's the beauty part is once you have your song, then every single part of your brand extension always starts with the song first. So my clients later on will come back and say, I want to start a podcast. I'm like, great. You already know what the podcast is about. It's your song. And they're like, right. I'm like, it's not your title. It's not your, it's what your purpose is. And everything else we do is just like a Coco Chanel accessory. It's nothing more, right? Everything I do is about visibility influence, everything I do. So anything that supports visibility influence is just an accessory to my song. But when I walk into a room, people will be like, you know what? They'll say, what does she do? And I don't have to answer the question anymore because everyone in the room will be able to tell them for me. And guess what, sister? That is a game changer because it's exhausting for us to explain ourselves all the time. I want them to sing my song.
And when other people are singing your song, it holds so much more value in the listener's ears.
Yes.
Because anytime somebody mentions you, it's seen as a referral. Hey, I know who she is. This is what she does.
Yeah, she's a visibility influence queen. I'm like, and then people can ask me how I get that done for them, but they've already set the song up. So then the rest of the conversation's easy breezy, right?
Easy breezy. And so what's the difference between your song and the verses?
Yeah, so the verses are just it's just the brand messaging that just supports the song. So every song, every top 10 hit literally typically has 3 verses. And human beings like consistency, and they like to be able to sing along with us and know what they're walking into. And so once they understand the song and they hear the verses is just another way of messaging out there. That's it. Yeah.
So very, very good. Now, also, I know that a majority of your brand strategies are community driven. Yeah. So how does a community driven strategy make a bigger impact for women entrepreneurs?
No more lone wolf behavior. That is what kills business, right? I grew up in an industry that is all about, always rolls the credits. My brother rolls the credits.
Oh, okay.
If you worked on something, you get a credit, and it's for life. It's for legacy. So I'll never forget that the one time the first time that my name was in lights, and it was on Stargate, and that was the first movie I ever worked on, and my brother did too. And we went to the movie theater together, and that we'll never forget that moment of seeing my name in lights. But my name in lights was with hundreds of other people. And what that industry is saying to you is, you can't do it alone. There's no such thing. You cannot build empires or thriving brands like Sony Pictures or Coca-Cola or Nike all by yourself. It's impossible. So you got to invest with the community. And when the community is singing along together, like that day at that holiday party, that everyone is elevating together. But you got to shift the mindset, because lone wolf behavior is really indoctrinated, especially in women young, because of lack of trust. And that can close your doors out there, ladies, the fastest possible way is to continue to be a lone wolf on an island.
Now, totally off subject, but just because you said a lot of times with a woman, it's lack of trust.
Yeah.
I know you and I chatted for a brief moment before we started about the history of women. Yeah. And in general, the history of women was always that of a supportive role. So how much of that, hey, the woman, I have to support everybody versus have my name up in lights, what's that difference, do you think?
Well, there's 2 differences. One is the support usually is around men and family and children, right? Not necessarily on them, right? So you learn also very young too. You become caretakers and nurturers very, very young. I mean, I remember I hear this constantly from women. I was very young, and my mom's saying, watch your brother, watch your sister. There's it. Oh, and you're making dinner young. I mean, it's crazy. We become like little people, like very, very quickly, women, right? But so there's that. But here's the thing too. It's about lack of trust with other women, because the competition starts young, right?
Right.
Who's going to get asked out first? By what boy? The proms, the marriage. And you know what's really interesting? I had a client, Lisa Straw. She came out with a blog, and I thought it was so interesting. She's like, do you know that there's only really 2 times in our lifetimes where the spotlight is absolutely placed on us? The first time is when you get married. So that would make sense why a lot of women like have a really hard time with weddings. All the attention's on them. And the second time is when you have a baby, right? So, but you're getting married to someone or you're having a baby. And that was really an aha moment for me. And so what part of the branding I'm doing out there around the visibility influence piece is I'm helping women say, let's put down our swords. Let's start trusting each other, because we know you can't build a thriving band as lone wolf. So how can we start trusting one another and start collaborating? And a great way of doing that is by rolling the credits. In other words, let's start spotlighting each other and just saying, hey, Cindy, I love what you're doing.
I love what you're doing.
I dig what you're doing.
Yeah.
I just think it's cool, right? And so I'm going to talk about you, right? And so we start chipping away at that lack of trust.
Right. That makes so much sense. And women, I've said this forever. We can be the biggest bitches against each other because we're constantly comparing ourselves to each other versus working together.
I'm like in, downtown San Francisco, Macy's, and I walk in, and the first glooming billboard, it's a huge store, right? It's the flagship store. And the first billboard I see is, she couldn't have been 12 or 13 years old, couldn't have been older than that. And she's holding a perfume bottle that only an adult could afford to buy, right? And I'm like, bingo. What are you saying to us out there, right? You're immediately putting us in competition. And and media has so much to do with the fashion industry and media. I mean, it's endless.
Even all the beauty pageants. I mean,
I know.
It's
like we're supposed to like hate each other, hate that woman for being prettier. I'm like, you know what? That is, bullshit. I'm like, that woman is awesome, and I'm awesome, and you're awesome. So how can we do this collectively? Dividing the herd and the tribe. That is the oldest trick in the book, right? And it is taught to us very, very young.
What I love about your message is not really too many people, if anybody else really has that. Let's come together as women, trust each other, love each other, help each other, support each other. There's a lot of people out there who's like, tap into your feminine power and be who you are, other than trying to live in a man's world. But it's that really the collaboration with each other, because we have so much to offer and give. And when we collaborate, that's when we really make a huge difference in the world.
That's right. Absolutely. So I'm going to be sharing this with my backyard. So my backyard is going to know you, Cindy.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Right. But isn't that what we want?
Yes,
that's the only way. Let me tell you, the movie business knows this very well. They know this strategy incredibly well. They're just like, how many territories can I get this movie in?
Right.
So I can just spread the word. And then that's where the wealth comes from.
And even with the movies, it's like, besides even the what the movie companies do to market it, it's like I go see a movie and then I come home and I start telling everybody, oh gosh, I've seen the greatest movie. And it grows more, I think, by the word of mouth and by us telling other people how great it was versus just the regular marketing, because a lot of times then we get tone deaf to the marketing.
Yeah, we do. Absolutely.
And that's where the collaboration comes in. We're helping each other. I know, just because I love this story, can you share the story really quick? Because it was such a beautiful story about collaboration between Coco and Marilyn Monroe.
Sure. So I named 113 Branding after Coco Chanel, which I believe is one of the greatest entrepreneurs in the world, and Marilyn Monroe, because she was also an amazing entrepreneur. So it's 1+1+3 is 5, and it's after Chanel number 5. Now, what a lot of people don't recognize out there is that it's actually Marilyn Monroe is what got Coco Chanel on the scene here in the United States that really built her empire. And it's when they asked Marilyn Monroe, the reporters, what did she wear when she went to bed at night? And she said, I only wear one thing, and it's Chanel number 5. Mm-hmm. And here are two women that never met one another, but what I call it is I call it the double dip. And so what she did is she dipped Coco by leveraging her influence, and then Coco Chanel showed up in the United States with Chanel number 5, and that went on to build an empire, and she's one of the greatest entrepreneurs of all time. So it's really beautiful how both of these women came together. And this is what I want to say too, you don't need to be best friends. You don't need to know each other. They had never met or talked.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It was just they had a common interest.
Absolutely. And you know what? Chanel number 5 now uses Marilyn Monroe.
Right.
And so Marilyn, by spotlighting another, which is one of my strategies, right? By spotlighting someone else, the spotlight grew even bigger and spotlighted her back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. I love it, love it, love it. And could you share a strategy that our listeners can take in 15 minutes or less to grow their business?
Sure. So where everyone out there is, they're either podcasting or blogging or doing video or something at this point, right? So something I would really suggest is getting a quote or getting an insight, right? And incorporating that into their next blog, video, etc., but giving it credit to the person that they pulled it from. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then going to that person and saying, you do the same. Now it can be in any media, right? So one person can be a video like queen, right? And another one could be the blogger queen, right? Doesn't matter, right? And so they exchange an expertise tip or a quote or something that's going to be spotlighted, and they exchange it with each other. They integrate it into their medium that they love. And the most important part of this is that they want to launch the same day around the same time and tag each other across all their social media. Mm-hmm. What it does is it does an introduction to each other's backyards. But what it really does, sister, is it creates a buzz. Because people are just like, whoa, I'm seeing you and I'm seeing you everywhere. And then I saw that quote and I saw that tip. And what's going on here? And it's something that I took from marketing down in Hollywood, but I've done it with as little one other person and as many as 80 people all at once.
And I can see even how that would have been done in Hollywood is because everybody wants to talk about it at the same time. So the buzz gets going. That's a great tip. Great tip.
And from different fields too. I really encourage people like go to the most bizarre, like go to your friend or someone you never met, but you like what they're doing online that has nothing to do with your field. And go to them and ask them to do it. And it's on Huffington Post. I have like the steps on Huffington Post. It's called the double triple dip.
Yeah, I love it, love it, love it.
Yeah.
And also, I know that you have a wonderful gift to share with our audience. Can you tell them a little bit about it? And then I'll send them to get the gift. They can go to bizsuccessin15.com and I'll have the download for them there.
Sure. So I've created an ebook. It's a really beautiful ebook, and it's full of 113 marketing and branding tips. Yeah. And along with it is I also integrate a lot of my imagery, and it's a way where I show people how I market. And imagery is a big part of my market, and they'll see my song, my verses in there, etc.
I love it. Thank you very much. And so you want to be sure to visit Biz Success in 15. You can grab the 113 branding tips from Joie. Plus, you can re-listen to the interview for today to catch any of those golden nuggets that you might have missed. And Joie, do you have any parting words for our listeners?
Yeah, I just want to really encourage everyone out there to know that it really is your birthright to stand in your visibility influence spotlight and shine bright. It really has nothing to do with your last name or your vocation or the money that you were born into. Instead, it has everything to do with your actual birthright of why you're here on earth, and just to own it and embrace it and stand in it and share it and get loved back for it.
Mm-hmm. I love that you said loved. I was a divorce coach for years, and I believe this wholeheartedly is everybody, every single human being from any country, what they want more than anything else is to be loved and accepted for who they are. But then they try to change themselves to get that love and acceptance. And whenever they're just you, that's where you actually get the love and acceptance you're craving.
It's truth.
Yeah, so I love it. Thank you very much. And if you enjoyed today's show, be sure to share it with your friends. Go on over to Biz Success in 15. You can find all the links mentioned on today's show. You'll also be able to re-listen to today's show and catch up on any past episodes that you might have missed. And be sure to grab your gift there. And with that, big hugs to you all. Be sure to tune in next week. And thank you, Joey, for being my guest today.
Thank you, sister. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.
You've been listening to Biz Success in 15. For all links mentioned in today's show and to watch or listen to previous episodes, visit bizsuccessin15.com. Thanks so much for listening, and be sure to tune in next week for another amazing guest.